Welcome to Planning and Zoning. This is our regular meeting. It's Wednesday, July 20th at 6 p.m. We'll start with Planning and Zoning roll call. Sarah Burak.
Amanda Podmore.
Marcia Haydenfeld.
Melissa Eggy.
Ed Dobson.
Thank you, guys. And then we will review minutes from our regular meeting on the 15th, and I'll share that on my screen. Planning and Zoning members, my apologies for not getting a meeting packet out to you guys this week. It slipped my mind. But I will share this with you guys. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Thank you, Marcia. I'm just going to scroll through. If there's comments, let me know.
I did fix a typo I saw on something, but it was so minor, I don't even know where I did it. Other than that, no.
Okay. Any discussion about these minutes?
I would move to approve the minutes for the June 15th Planning and Zoning meeting as presented.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Minutes are approved. And I will share the minutes from our joint session. Here. All right. Any discussion on these minutes? Go ahead.
Just for clarification for anyone who reads this was all a discussion, and it is my understanding that because it was a work session and discussion, none of this is now in code or presented as code. It is all good ideas or discussion of good ideas. So yes, I don't want someone reading it and thinking we did all this.
Good point. Thank you for that clarification, Marcia. Yes, this was a work session, so no decisions were made, but Town Council and Planning and Zoning worked together to share our ideas.
I would make a motion to accept the minutes of the joint work session from July 13th as presented.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thanks, Ed. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 Ed, did you vote?
Yep. Yes.
Voted aye?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, Ed. I just didn't hear you. All right. Motion passes unanimously. Minutes are approved. Thank you, guys. Okay. All right, and then we will allow this moment for public citizens to be heard. So if there is a citizen who'd like to make a public comment, we'll allow you about 3 minutes to do so. You can unmute your microphone or put your name in chat. Okay, I'm going to close public comment, and we'll go on to the next part of our agenda, which is an update from Town Council. Luann couldn't be with us, but I think, Aaron, you're going to do that update.
Yes, I do have updates. I'm sure Luann might have a few things to add during your next meeting, but I know it's been quite a while since you've had a town council update, since last week was only a joint session. First of all, we wanted to thank you for the participation in the joint session. That was very helpful. They will be talking about the current exterior lighting ordinance during the upcoming meeting on Tuesday, July 26th. That meeting was added to the schedule because we only got through about half of the agenda from last night due to it being a very hefty agenda. I did want to let you all know that the amended zoning ordinance with signatures and all the corrections has been uploaded to the website. As noted in last week's meeting, the wrong one was still up there. So I have updated it in all 3 places. Please, 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 we all make mistakes. If you do notice something that seems amiss, please let us know. But I appreciate everyone's diligent eyes in this. It should be updated. Take 3, right? There are UDOT projects that, or I should say grants available that the town is going to be considering, including looking at like long-term strategic planning and an active transportation plan. Those are upcoming. We've had bits and pieces of information over the last few meetings, but certainly, we welcome citizen input, and they will be talking about these in the upcoming July 26th meeting, as well as the August 2nd meeting. As maybe an interesting note to you all, we are going to start really digging in on the addressing system. So I don't know how familiar you are with what was done at the county level. It is a town responsibility since incorporation, and this has been an area that's been overlooked, I think, a little bit. Hopefully I'm not sticking my toe out by saying that. I've been doing research and talking to a lot of folks, but I just wanted to let you know that this project is upcoming and a very important one given, the significance regarding emergency calls. And, as we continue to grow, we want to ensure that our grid system is accurate, in the center of town, as well as way out in the boundaries, if we do have requests, further outside. One thing to note that probably would be a little early to say, but we'll also be looking at all the addresses that were already in the system to ensure that they're accurate based on a true grid system, if that makes sense. So not only looking at new, but looking at existing. Finally, the last one is just that upcoming meeting, which I've already talked about. Are there any questions or things that I can address or take back to the council? Marcia?
Erin, did the subject of the Google Plus addressing come up at all? I'm just curious. You don't have to go,
It did not,
Okay.
but I do think that it's a discussion worth having, especially given that we know entities in town have worked on it, and we see those placards. So thank you for bringing that up. I'll make sure that it's at least included as we go, as the town council makes their decisions. So.
Right. I just think Drew giving an update of where they stand and stuff might be beneficial just to know where they are in the process.
Absolutely. Certainly. Thank you. Oh, and one last thing. I'm so sorry. I was looking at other long-term strategic planning. Also in the upcoming meetings, they will be discussing the International Dark Skies application as well. Like I said, they were looking at the current exterior lighting. So those are going to kind of be paired in this next meeting. So hopefully we'll have an update when you guys meet next.
Thank you, Erin. Any other questions for Erin? Okay, moving right along. We're going to look at land use clearances. We'll start with Andrea Martins. I will share it on the screen, but Andrea, I saw that you joined us. I just want to let you know that this is also a little bit of discussion because we want to clarify if you truly need a land use clearance on this porch. We had a lot going back and forth on email, but this should be a public discussion. So I will share it to the screen, and then commissioners, we can chat a little bit more about it. Give me just
And if you need a rotated version, let me know, sir. I put a new PDF in the folder that was rotated, the correct orientation. There we go.
all right. So the application is for a 8-foot wide by 40-foot long pressure treated uncovered wood deck with a decorative pergola of the same dimensions and materials. It will be placed along the south side of the green manufactured home on the Willow Street Cottages Combe Road Trading Post property. The deck will be detached from the mobile home and is less than 30 inches high. The pergola will also be detached from the mobile home and will be 8 inches high. A 4-foot long stair with 4 stairs will be located at the center of the deck along the south face.
Chair, I just want to correct, you were reading that, but it said 8 feet, not 8 inches.
Oh, thank you, Melissa. I appreciate your correction. I was reading just to give you a general sense. I can continue reading, but there was a question of whether or not this constitutes the need for a land use clearance, and I'd like for commissioners to kind of weigh in on that first. Go ahead, Marcia.
Can we just open the paragraph that we are all discussing that says porches aren't part of this, which is in, if the newest version of the zoning ordinance is opened, then we have that little list that says you do not need a permit for, and I believe porches is right there. So if that's true, there'd be no LUC to go get a permit. That's my take.
And to add to that, it says it's not required for construction or addition of a porch or patio unless it is enclosed by more than 50% or integral to the structural integrity of the building. And I think because Andrea's is not enclosed and it's not integral to the structural integrity, in fact, it's separate from the building, it does not require a building permit and therefore not a land use clearance.
Sounds right to me.
I agree with your guys' thinking as well, and just wanted to note if the pergola means a roof and if that changes anybody's thinking. I know we had sort of talked about that, if things had roofs or not. So just curious how people interpreted that. Although I'll just say personally, I'm in agreement with everything you guys have said.
I don't think it changes my mind, Melissa, in that when I think of a pergola, I think of sort of a partial roof, if you will, some sort of, I think she described it as an eyebrow. So I'm not thinking once again of the enclosed value of a full, but I think we're trying to clarify for all of us the idea that when we look at these things, we are able to say as a group, here's the rule, and the rule is not for porches. So that's where I'm taking this.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification. I'm on the same page, just wanted to know that.
I guess, should I motion to deny the land use clearance because it's not required? How do I
Second.
Deny the need for a land use clearance.
Yeah.
That is not, it doesn't need to come before this. Is that correct?
I don't think we need to deny the land use clearance. I think we can
Right.
dismiss. I don't know if the right word
Dismiss, yeah. Dismiss.
We can express appreciation for providing all this information. It's good stuff.
I amend my motion to say we dismiss the land use clearance on the grounds that it's not needed.
And now, does Ed still second that?
Sure.
Thanks, Ed. All in favor of dismissing this land use clearance, say aye.
Hi.
Aye. And
Aye.
I second Ed's comment that we really appreciate the work that went into submitting this so that we had it in front of us.
So motion passes unanimously. Andrea, if you're on the call, thank you very much for taking the time to submit this to us. It helped us clarify our ordinances and our process. And you are free to start building. Also, just to clarify in our back and forth with emails, I think one of the places where we maybe got a little confused is with the request for interior remodel. So we will, and we can talk about this at this point, an interior remodel based on the way the code is currently written does require a land use clearance. So just FYI, when you get to that point, we'll look for another land use clearance.
Definitely. You'll see it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you
Looking
very
forward
much.
to seeing you back here.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye. Thank you. All right, and then we'll go on to Gary Howes and Sam Weldon's permit. And I think, Amanda, you put that in the folder as well.
Did, yeah.
Let me see if I can find that one.
The Haas 2022.
Oh, yep, I see it. Thank you. Do you guys want to look at the site plan, or do you want to look at all of it?
Well, the site plan probably is the most important.
Okay. Let me go back. And let's see if I can make it look. How's that? Somewhat readable?
It's okay, Sarah, to
Okay.
please discuss.
So this is a land use clearance for building a horse stable barn as well as. Hey Sam, I'm gonna mute you or ask you to mute yourself. Thanks, Sam. So this is for a residence as well as a 4-stable barn. And I'll open it up for discussion. Marcia, go ahead.
I just would like a little clarification on my typical question of access. And I think I had sent an email just asking if it's recognized. And that is for Sam and Mr. Hawes, perhaps, if you are riding on the back road and headed beyond towards the pond, you just continue straight through that old existing gate, and your property then begins right after that, and that is your private road, or your private road turns off of the old road. I'm sorry, I'm not there, so I couldn't take a ride to go looking. I just find that Bluff has so many questions of where the roads go that just for curiosity, I want to make sure that I understand your access.
So I believe at the end of Calf Canyon Road, where their gate begins, it is a private road, and it's actually a shared private driveway access with an easement for Rocky Mountain Power, because that's where our substation is. But yes, it is private road.
So Sam, then the gate can be closed by the Hawes family in terms of getting through, and or Rocky Mountain Power still can,
Yes.
but the public does not go. I mean, we never have gone through that gate, which is probably why I'm confused anyway. But then do you turn off of that onto whatever this private road, or is that the private road?
That is the private road. The gate is at the beginning of the property line.
Okay. So do we have then the proper, if you will, setbacks of all of these to that road? It's just a little misconceiving on this picture, and I'm not sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I believe that it needs to be gated because of the fact that there is access to the substation there.
Okay, that makes sense. I don't mind the gate if it's private. I wasn't going to go through it anyway. I don't have that problem. I just was wondering what the access road then leads to, where these houses sit for setbacks and things. That's all.
Oh, okay.
Question?
Go ahead, Ed.
While we're talking about this road, is there any other party that has use of that road?
No. No, the easement for that private road is only for the Hawes and for Rocky Mountain Power.
So, for example, Mark Bond wouldn't be going around that way.
No, I mean, he could, but he'd have to have like a dirt bike, and man, that would it'd be really out of the way.
I think it's on his bucket list.
Oh, great.
Other thoughts from commissioners?
I'll just say, this is Amanda. Nice to meet you. I was just looking into some of our ordinances, like the amount of horses allowed in a residential zone, but this is a large acreage, so I think the barn and the amount of horses isn't an issue. And I was looking at like when a site plan is required for development, but because the actual structure in this is proposed to be under 2,000 square feet, I don't think it's a level 1 site plan is involved. So I just wanted to take you all through the like little cross-referencing steps that I took.
Thank you. Yeah.
Amanda, thank you. You're always good at finding those little squeaky things that we. I mean, I thought I looked, but then I was like, "Oops, horses." But that does bring up a question then of, are you actually building two separate pieces, or is it all one piece connected by that little alley overhang thing?
So if you look at if you can scroll up to the elevation plan, it is all under one structure, which to me originally had been a gray area because it's a new type of build for me, and I actually have been in contact with Ronnie Neves at the health department, as well as the Scott Burton for the building permits and everything, just because I was wondering if there was anything associated with livestock and dwelling being under the same roof, and he said because of the separation that we're totally fine as far as that stuff goes as well.
So it's kind of that little door in the middle here is kind of an alley that separates. Is that it's covered, but it's a space. It looks like two barn doors, a tiny little door, and a house when I'm looking, or the dwelling on the right, and that little door is like the alley in between. Is kind of how you described it, the word alley.
Correct.
Right? Okay. It's kind of cool if that's It's very old.
Thank you.
It's very old West to me to have, somebody living on the other. It's kind of like the cowboys live on the other side of the barn, kind of thing. But it's kind of cool.
Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, if you guys have any future questions or in general, like I think that if any planning and zoning members want to come visit the site or actually see what our setbacks are or anything like that, I'm always willing to make myself available for you guys. So.
Sam, that is one of the questions though that I think I started to ask at the beginning was your setbacks technically should be on there just so we know that. And I'm not sure I saw it, or it was confusing to me.
I think the setbacks on the actual property lines should be on the site plan. If we can scroll up there.
Okay.
They're on there. It's 120 and 210 or something.
Yeah.
I have the hard copy, and yes, I know it didn't come through super clearly. So it's 120 and 210.
Okay, that's fine. It just was a little deceiving to read, but that's great as long as everything's met.
While we're on this image, could you clarify, please? Is this build, like the plan that you're showing, is it going to be in the square that says possible future house site, or what is the one that's on the left side that says, I think it says barn? Are these two, does that structure already exist? And which space is where this current project would go?
So this is just, a thought for, moving forward in the future. Just, kind of dream home situation for the Haws and being able to build the house there. It's definitely not up on the top of the bench, and it's very well tucked down behind. But it's years in the future, so it's kind of just, drawn
So-
out to show that we might do something there way later on.
So then, Sam, I agree with Melissa's question that the future house is not being looked at today. The substation exists, and the barn that we're talking about is this one over in the corner, and that's what we're approving tonight. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so in that case, we're at 38 feet on the west and 40 feet to the north for setbacks. Is that correct, Sam?
I don't have my plans in front of me, but yeah, that sounds right.
So, Mr.
Honestly, and we would have done actually more of a setback, but because of that high voltage line that feeds Mexican Hat and south of us, we have to have, I believe, a minimum of 60-foot setback from that overhead power line. So we were just trying to make it fit in between that setback from the overhead transmission high voltage line and the property lines.
That was my next question, and I know this isn't in our ordinance, but if it's, I know we probably can't weigh in on that. However, I just wanted to draw attention to that high voltage line and wondering if Rocky Mountain Power, any other entity, has a rule. And it sounds like you're aware of that, so just that's great for safety to know. But I do have a question. Amanda kind of spoke to it a minute ago, but I'd like to just come back and hear your thinking more on the application where it says, pull it back up, where it says the project square footage. It's listed as 5,100. I assume square feet, but there's no notation of size, so I'm just assuming it's square feet. But in the description, we're talking about a 1,200 square residence, and then the addition to that to make it to the 5,100, I assume square feet, is the barn with the garage, the alleyway, attached roof. So curious, Amanda, and you're thinking about why a site plan wasn't triggered. Is it because we're talking about the residence being 1,200 square feet? But then curious what dimensions, I want to say it that way. Curious then, when we're talking about that second story that looks like it's above that alleyway that we're looking at as dividing the two kind of residential to barn, how does that alley, the second story above the alleyway, play into which part is considered part of the residence or part of the barn? Just curious how that works. So that's just what my thinking is. I'd love you guys' thoughts on that in terms of the square footage of the building itself in total.
I would say we could definitely question my interpretation. I was reading the land use clearance ordinance for what constitutes a small project, and it was saying 2,000 square feet, less than 2,000 square feet for a residential structure, single-family dwelling, duplex, or accessory dwelling unit. So it seemed to me that because we were talking about a dwelling that was less than 2,000, it wouldn't trigger that level 1 site plan, but I could be mistaken. So welcome other folks' feedback.
It's a very interesting question, Melissa, because Sarah, could you scroll down to the whole elevation just so we can see what the whole thing So if we're talking about asking for an for a site plan for anything that's bigger, why does this not become the bigger? And that's an excellent question, Melissa. I don't know. Because Amanda, I agree, the house is tiny, but the whole structure is big. Good question.
Yeah.
Sarah, Amanda, do you have that in front of you to read? Like you just read the porches. Could you, maybe the wording will help us.
And yeah, let me drop it in the chat to at least the link. it says, well, review of small projects, which is, I think, the expedited process, is the following development activities shall comply with this subsection D. 1, remodeling, a new addition or change of use comprising less than 2,000 square feet of new or remodeled construction of an existing commercial or residential structure. 2, construction of a single-family dwelling. 3, construction of a duplex. Or 4, construction of an accessory dwelling unit. So
And those are the things that don't need a site plan, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So do we call this whole thing a dwelling because it has the little living part? Or do we say this is a large construction, including stuff that, I don't know. I'm not answering. I'm just asking how we divide that. Because to me, this feels like, wait a minute, this is a whole project. It should be a site plan. This is pretty close to the site plan we would be asking for, is it not? There's only a little bit more that we need.
Yeah.
That was going to be my question. What would you need in addition to this to complete a site plan? I mean, it's not a large enough project to. Sorry, Aaron, I'll read your comment in just a minute. It's not a large enough project to require like a traffic study or that kind of thing. So
No.
what would be the additional information we'd need to approve this? Aaron says, a site plan review is not required for the development of the following as defined in this title: single family dwelling, a duplex. That's what she was just reading. She just added it to the.
Yeah, I'm just adding it so folks can see it, as well as the site plan review is required for.
Huh. And Sarah, I actually agree with your question as well. What more could we want? And that would just be that checklist of, did we get everything we need? So, I mean, we've gotten, for example, we got the sewer permit and things like that. So, I mean, I think we're either there or very close to there, but it brings up an interesting question of what the definition is of what we want.
Well, we have a very detailed outline in the zoning ordinance of what is required in a level 1 site plan. The only challenge is we don't have a site plan application.
Well, you don't need one. If you ask.
Well, I think it's according to this, you do need to submit a site plan application.
A separate piece of paper. Aha. Well, that goes on our list, Madam Chair.
I'm writing it down right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so Amanda or Aaron, can you pull up what a level 1 site plan includes, and that way we can give, or let me pull that up for us. But commissioners, are we asking for a level 1 site plan?
Not if we're not ready to ask for one based on not having a form. I mean, I love the idea of pulling it up so we can double check what might be missing. But I also do not want to hold this up by virtue of us not understanding our paperwork. So I would like to say that this is pretty nicely presented. And if in fact we believe that it meets our criteria, which for discussion purposes, I'm going to say it does, then it would be go ahead and approve it and work on our paperwork later. Go ahead, Erin.
Not to convolute this even more, it is saying under definitions of a level 1 application means a site plan application for the development of 6 or fewer residential units or the development or remodeling of not more than 5,000 square feet of furnished, well, I guess it's for commercial space. So I was wondering if this would even kick it into above 5,000 with the 5,100, but I don't suppose so.
Not commercial, private, so we're good. And residential zoning too.
What's the acreage of the entire lot? Is that on any document?
It's like 10.3.
Okay.
I guess I would just go on to say that if in fact we need to do this with regard to the presentation as made, that my feeling is we can go ahead and okay or not, I mean, vote and decide but then put on our agenda that we're going to catch up with some needed definition paperwork that goes with that for anything that comes further. So that's my feeling is to
Can
move
I
ahead.
offer just the idea of looking at what's allowed in a residential zone and asking people if they feel like the structure meets those definitions, those descriptions. I think it's really cool project. I think it's really awesome. I think I'm just alerted to the size of the building. Looking at it, like it looks way bigger than a residence. Like I understand, like there's a place to live and cook. It looks like that's all put in there, but it looks like there's a lot more happening in the structure. And so I just kind of feel like there's more to the project than just like building like a single family dwelling, which we kind of associate with residential structures. And I'm not trying to be a naysayer because I think it's really cool. So I would just ask if people wanted to review that and or I don't mean to hold things up, but like kind of my gut feeling is like, do we need to have some other folks weigh into this discussion, understanding like the size and the use of the building, like what the building is. It's more than just a residence. That's just my thinking.
Melissa, I actually agree with your analysis of what the heck is this and does it fit. So I don't think we need anyone else to weigh into this. The whole point of being appointed to the Planning and Zoning Commission is to make good decisions based on the 5 of us working so hard together. But I also wouldn't mind, because I actually agree with your question. When you look at this whole thing, it's mostly a barn with a little dwelling, and this is residential. So Amanda mentioned how many horses, and it didn't seem to be a problem to have 4 stalls because it's a lot of property. But the building itself, do we talk about barns or anything in our residential dwelling definitions? I mean, residential zoning definitions? That's an excellent question. Can someone drop?
We do.
I'm trying to find that for you.
I just looked it up. So residential can include an accessory dwelling unit, and then, oh wait, that's, well, I'm just.
The only place that barn seems to be referenced in the zoning ordinance right now is under the definition of an accessory building.
Oh, an accessory building is a barn, can include a barn, and accessory buildings are allowed in residential districts.
Yes.
So that kind of answers us. The answer is yes. That was good though, Melissa, because that's exactly right. Does a barn fit where, residential is? And I think we found it, if that's.
Yeah.
So I was reading through what a level 1 site plan requires, and I feel that a lot of it is very much tailored for large construction in commercial areas, which just kind of led me to my question would be, are you planning on doing any kind of commercial use of your horses? Like, do we need to be worried about extra traffic or anything like that on these roads, or? No. Okay. So I guess I would say, and Melissa, I appreciate your point, because I think you brought up a really good point here. Looking at what's required of a level 1 site plan, I'm not sure that we would need that additional information to approve this. For example, I mentioned like the traffic allowances, but a lot of it is like the topography and right-of-ways, which we've covered here. Your sign usage and where your signs are going to be placed. So we have drive, streets, right-of-ways, parcel boundaries, parking and loading, access, refuge area, common open space, public dedications, fire hydrants. do we feel that any of that additional things, a conceptual sign plan, a lighting plan, landscape plan, wetlands, riparian areas, and floodways, drainage plan? Are there any of these pieces we want to see in addition?
I mean, in my opinion, the like the drainage in terms of like stormwater or like it's on the land use clearance. I think that's really important. What's going to happen with a monsoon on a roof structure over 5,100 square feet? Where is it at? Let me look for it. The part that says a scale plan drawing, I'm looking under there. And location description, dimensions of stormwater improvements. And is there a need for that if that large of a building is there? I'm kind of asking that rhetorically, sort of. I don't know that answer, but it seems important to consider.
Sam, did you address drainage at all when this plan was being looked at?
Oh, absolutely. And it was interesting because it is right underneath where one of our old ponds used to be. But no, there's absolutely good drainage off of the site there. And that's again another thing that, if any of you guys want to come on site and look at it, you'd be like, no brainer. It's totally safe for drainage there.
Sam, I would just like to clarify that while we stand on a piece of property and look at something, we absolutely can do that. That's a no-brainer. But we just need to be careful to cover in writing, for example, what we're talking about. So I love site reviews. I used to do planning and zoning, and I used to go on a site review before every meeting. And we don't do that very much. And sometimes I regret it, like something like this, where we could just say, oh, Marcia, that's the gate, silly me, okay. Or that's the drainage, okay. But if we're asking questions, then paperwork may be necessary. It might not in this case, but I'm just saying we might need it.
Yeah, and as far as where you guys were at, with not having specific provisions in place and not being sure with everything, like moving forward, if you guys need any more information regarding the site plan and anything else or physical site review, we're more than willing to work with that.
Thank you, Sam. Commissioners, how would you guys like to proceed?
I would make a motion to approve the LUC request from Haas Weldon for the property as presented.
Second.
So discussion of my motion is just, I think that they've presented what we asked for. I think our next discussions as a group needs to be clarification of what we asked for.
Thanks, Marcia. So there's a motion on the table. All in favor of approving this land use clearance as presented, say aye.
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 I'm going to abstain because I'm on the fence.
Amanda, I'm curious, so you're abstaining because you're on the fence about our paperwork aspect of it, or or about the actual project?
Just our procedural aspect, which I realize is a real pain to people that come to us. So I do agree we need to look at our site plan requirements going forward, but that's why I'm abstaining.
Okay.
Thank you, Amanda. So this land use clearance is approved with a 4-1 vote. So I am not there to sign this document, but I don't know how this works. Amanda, are you in Bluff? Could you sign it, or?
I will be able to sign it Friday, I believe. With that, or one of us could sign it electronically.
I guess I could sign it electronically. I could work on signing it electronically and then emailing it. So, Mr. Hawes, congratulations, your land use clearance is
Thank you.
approved. We will work on the logistics of getting it signed and back to you. I will try my best to get it electronically signed. If I can't figure that out, we'll get Amanda to do it physically for you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for taking the time to join us.
No, thank you.
Thank you guys, and most of you have my number. If not, it's on the Bluff, whatever. So, welcome to come up anytime if you need
Thanks,
to
Sam.
be
We
on
appreciate
site.
it.
All right, guys. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a nice evening.
You too. Bye.
All right, commissioners, let's push along. We got 15 minutes left. Let's see, Amanda. Oh, let's see. Review and approval of zoning code amendment request form. Do we want, so with our 15 minutes left, let's prioritize a little bit the rest of the agenda. So we have the zoning code amendment request form, we have wayfinding sign project, and we have P&Z vacancy terms. Is there anything we wanted to try to go through the agenda as is, or do we want to try to prioritize?
I can say there's no update on the wayfinding sign, so that is moot.
Perfect. That saves us one thing. Are we in a place where we're ready to look at the code amendment request?
What are you I'm not sure what you're referring to.
I think that's what we called it. Amanda, you shared it with us after the last meeting.
Yeah, it's the Bluff Zone Amendment Request Form.
Another form.
Yeah.
Another form that we
Okay.
didn't have but need to have. But we haven't actually approved it. So let's just.
I don't think it'll take very long. I think, isn't it, Amanda, you and I put one together and stole it and fixed it?
I'll share it with you guys, and then if it looks good.
So this was a piece of paper that we put together because people would ask, could they change the zone, meaning the map, or could they change, the zoning map or the text is what I'm trying to spit out. So with this form, they could request that. And this is where that came from. So I think what I did was find one somewhere, fix it up, give it to Amanda. She edits my fix-ups. And I think together we've come up with something that should work.
Yeah. I just would note, I think before the zoning code has been amended since we changed it. So I think we need to update the zoning code reference that I put in yellow.
Good idea.
And then I don't think there's like a PZ, like a box where the planning and zoning writes what we decide. But I think we have to I think anything like this needs to go to public hearing, so it's not like we just sign off on this. So.
Right. This is just the request of what's going to happen. We don't we have to submit it to the usual procedures, which is public hearing and all those other things. So,
yeah. So we are, based on best practices, we did have a notary authorization, a notarized section. But we could take that off if y'all don't think that's necessary.
I'm a notary, so I can't answer that question. It would be a conflict.
I personally like the notary section because an amendment request is a pretty significant ask in that it requires expenditure of funds in mailings and hearings and stuff. So I like the seriousness associated with that. That's my 2 cents.
I agree, Amanda.
Thanks, Melissa. Thanks, Amanda.
And then we highlighted this general plan question. I kind of think we should take that off because that's something that it's not up to the applicant to decide, it's up to us to decide. So I think it would be decided in a separate process, not on this application form.
Agreed. That would be on our checklist of things to know before we offered up our opinion to change.
I would agree with that.
Do you want me to edit that in the document as a suggestion to delete?
Sure. Or yeah.
Just to take it off. If Melissa does her copy and edit, then we'd have the final document we could vote on, right? Doesn't that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
So Melissa, you can just take that sentence out of there. Perfect.
So I would motion to approve the Bluff Planning and Zoning Zone Amendment Request Form once the land use with an update of the land use code reference on page 1.
I would say.
Can I add to your motion though and say there's a couple things in the document like we just need to fix, like for instance, I think I'm on page, sorry, I don't know what page this is, 2. Like in red it says below the notary signature requirement. Do we want that? So I think can we include your motion to say like, and some grammatical document cleanups?
No, that's what you're doing right now, Melissa. Go for it. Take that out. There. Did you see any others, Melissa?
Sorry. Yeah, I think that looks good. Thanks. Okay. Retroactive motion.
Okay, so the motion's been seconded to approve this for use, this form for use. All in favor say aye.
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 I
Motion passes unanimously. We have a new form. Yay. And we'll slowly have all the forms we need one of these days. All right.
Erin, could you help us get that on the website? Or do you want?
Yes. Can you send me the final copy? And I will also make sure that town council is aware of your new form.
Thank you. Okay, so planning and zoning vacancy notification process. Erin, is this maybe something you can speak to, or are you ready to speak to?
So let me ask, did the mayor reach out to you today, Amanda?
She did, yeah.
Did you talk about this? Because she said she was going to talk to you.
We did, yeah. We reviewed what we had done in the past.
Amanda, do you want to share?
Sure. So in the past, the process was that planning and zoning announced the vacancy on the website, in a posting in the San Juan Record, and with a flyer in town. We received the candidates, we interview them in a public meeting. We make a recommendation as the commission and send that to the town council, and then they make the final decision. Does that sound correct to everybody?
I think that, yes, that is how I remember it, Amanda. Is there any kind of, my other thought was, is there any kind of timeline? I feel like in the past when we've done this, we've waited for the terms to expire and then those positions were just vacant. Do we want to try to preempt that handoff?
Isn't it in the bylaws what you're supposed to do for timing?
Probably, Marcia, but I don't remember.
The initial ordinance that puts P&Z in place talks about terms. So if Erin can help by checking that out and letting us know,
Yes.
then, because you're right, Sarah, it'd be if we can announce it, whatever it is, October 1st or something for the end of the year, that would be great. And I believe that it's written into code, to law.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And certainly I feel like we are enough ahead of it right now that, I know we've received notification from Sarah. And then, yeah, I'd like to have a solid plan. So I can get another update for you after receiving that. And then we can have everything timelined out as to when we're announcing it on the website, when you're putting in the San Juan record, and when everything else is when we schedule the interviews or however you phrase them. So.
Thanks, Erin. I appreciate your help with that. Any other discussion on this item?
Maybe we also include in the timeline for commissioners to make their decision if they want to be considered for another term or not be considered, like what that deadline is. Or I guess, is that even part of the bylaws? Like those of us whose terms are up, we have to resubmit, right? Like if we want to continue, right? That's the process. So whatever that deadline is to opt in or opt out to be considered.
I think it's probably the same for whatever we set open for the public, right?
I would think so.
I would think so too.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
Anything else?
Would you put this on your next meeting agenda for an update from me?
Yep.
Thanks.
Can do. And that takes us to our next meeting agenda, which is what do we want to talk about next time? We've got this, talk about vacancy again. We have a application for a site plan. Do we want to talk about that next time?
Yes.
Okay. What else?
Maybe a wayfinder sign update. I don't know.
Okay, we can keep it if you think there'll be something. And that's probably plenty, in all honesty. But if there's something else,
Now to other.
Yes, now to other. You have 2 minutes.
Well, I think it's what Erin and Amanda started on the email that we wanted to discuss, and I think it's important. I think it stemmed from we received an email from a town resident who said, could you please list where the LUC is for? Because I don't know if I want to comment when I just see someone's name that I don't know. It is my take from years of doing this that I say or suggest that we put the address. So for example, the Hawes address would have been whatever that is, Calf Canyon Road. And then the Andrea request would have said Comb Ridge Bistro. So what we're saying is, I do agree that the public is supposed to know what planning and zoning is working on. And it is public knowledge. I also understand to me, this is not a grammar request or anything. He's not looking for the paperwork of it. His suggestion was, could you just tell me where? And in the good old days of planning and zoning that I did, we always had where it was. So that's my suggestion in answer to that. It was a good suggestion.
Thanks, Marcia. Go ahead, Erin.
Hoping this doesn't open a whole can of worms. So part of the email was also regarding public comment and potentially the idea of public hearing. So in terms of our ordinances, do you all have to have a public hearing, in which case, yes, we would take public consideration? I understand that there's a separate process for public comment ahead of the meeting or after, but my understanding is right now we do not hold public hearings for these types of applications. They would be held at the town council level, in which case citizens would be a part of the decision-making process.
That's actually an excellent point, Erin, that you're inviting more information into it. I believe my answer would be that, in fact, we do want to be able to have people write a letter or comment on something we're about to read. I believe that is the process that we're doing. We do not need a public hearing, but we could in fact be taking in the information that we hear from the neighbors. We are not allowed to react to public clamor, but we are allowed to react or understand public comment. You know, just if someone, I don't know, if someone looked at it and said, hey, what about those power lines? Well, maybe that would have reminded me to ask, as Melissa did, to ask about the power lines. So my take is the more understanding that the public has for this, the easier it is for us to say we let everyone know. Hi, Quinn.
Can you say hi to Marcia?
So
She's
to go
been.
back to that, I guess the question is, are we soliciting public comment, in which case we would need to hold a public hearing? So we just want to make sure that we have that very well distinguished. If we're soliciting it, it's one thing and it needs to be a public hearing. Otherwise, you go with what you currently have in the books.
So you're saying no address is what, and I mean, I'm following that. I don't want to hear people saying, I don't like the color of the barn.
I think it might, I'm not saying it either way. I think it's just something to, as we make a decision on it, what is the outcome that you'd like to see going forward?
Thanks, Erin. Go ahead, Amanda.
I think that, well, land use clearance is a purely administrative action on our part. There's no like subjectivity or need for public comment. So I don't think we're ever inviting public comment into a land use clearance decision, but I think it would be wise to put the name and the address in the agenda notice just for transparency. That's my 2 cents.
I
I
agree.
think that's very accurate. So I would caution in regard to his other comments, we're not taking public comment, but here's the information. And you might want to show up and see what the outcome is.
Erin, that's a really good way to put it. And I agree. One of the things that happens at any public meeting that any of us who've been doing this for a million years knows is the difference between a public meeting and a public hearing. And so I agree with you. We want to keep it that way. We want to keep the difference.
I know that went over a little bit. I just want to make sure that we're a well-rounded, informed group. So thank you.
No, thanks, Erin. It sounds like the consensus is that we should start adding the address. You guys can help me remember to do so in the future. Just remind me, but we can do that. We can add the address. But yes, we are not asking for your comments on land use clearances because that is not where those go. Any other things for other? Yeah, so
Move adjourned.
Soliciting versus allowing public comments, yes. Public comments are always allowed at the beginning of our meetings, but we are not soliciting the public comment. Thank you, Kathleen, for that clarification.
Yeah.
And then Ed, I felt like you were saying something.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, thanks, Ed.
Oh, second.
Okay, all in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. We are adjourned at 7:04 p.m. Thank you guys so much for your time.
Good night. Good night, Quinn.
Good night, Quinn.